Welcome everyone to BODHI MAGGA in the month of May. BODHI MAGGA, the path to awakening. We all come together every month to develop our mindfulness, sati, samadhi, the unification of mind, with the aim of developing our wisdom through the practice of stillness and insight bhavana techniques. We also, as part of that, aim to understand and practice the Dhamma, to walk the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, for the liberation from stress. Our monthly gatherings are normally held every first Friday of the month, although today is an exception, from 6 to 8 UK. And this year, as you know, we're exploring the 7 factors of awakening, or the Bojjhanga Dhamma. We begin with a welcome to everybody, an introduction, and after that, our instructor will present a Dhamma talk, a guided meditation. There's time for discussion and questions and answers, and then we close the session with blessings. So today, as part of our exploration of the 7 factors of awakening, we focus on the 3rd factor, which is Viriya, or effort, and how it counters the hindrances. Particularly, we'll be looking at how the hindrance of sloth and torpor, tinamidda, is countered wisely, both through our formal practice as well as in our daily lives. Paul, our esteemed instructor, you're all very familiar with Paul, has practiced meditation for well over 20 years in monasteries, caves, and kutis all across the world. And he has been inspired by leading Theravada teachers in various countries. He has a wide knowledge of the suttas and the meditative traditions. And while he leads a lay life, he clearly is doing his best to optimize the practice of the Dhamma and integrate that into daily life. So with that, I close the introductory thoughts and invite Paul to take forward our session today. Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gihanta. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Yeah, so firstly, as always, so lovely to see you all. And those of you who've been with us on the journey since January, you'll know that, as Gihanta said, we're focusing on the 7 factors of awakening and their role in countering the hindrances, firstly, and then really creating the conditions for awakening. So this is so key, it's so crucial, because the Buddha stated very, very clearly, very explicitly, that unless we develop these 7 factors, awakening cannot happen. So this is really, it's really of the essence for all of us. And even just in our sort of mundane lives, our daily lives, the 7 factors of awakening make such a difference. You know, when we can start to build them, develop them, they really transform our quality of life in everything that we do. So as we develop them, we have that deeper purpose of liberation, and that first step, particularly for most people, most of us, of stream entry. And then as we go through our daily lives, just really powerfully lifting the quality of our lives. Because the 7 factors of awakening, when we really focus on them, develop them, everything gets better. You know, we feel better, our relationships get better, we feel happier, we feel lighter, we feel purer, cleaner, just it's really sensational how much of a difference it makes, even in our everyday lives, let alone in terms of transforming our path to liberation. So what we're going to do today is really build on what we've done so far. So we spent 1 or 2 sessions on the first of the 7 awakening factors, which you may know by now is sati. And then last session we did the next one, which is Dhamma Vichaya, investigation of Dhammas. And today we're going to focus on the next one, which is Viriya, effort, perseverance. Another interesting translation of it is quite an unusual one, which is shoring up. Now, what that means is when beautiful, wholesome things arise, let's say loving kindness, effort, virya, actually has the purpose of maintaining it, of shoring it up. In the same way as if you build a dam, you don't want that dam to collapse, so you shore it up. So there are many, many ways in which virya works in our practice, and we're going to talk about that. Then we also spoke about how the 7 factors of awakening, one of the ways that the Buddha spoke about them is that they condition each other. So mindfulness sati conditions the next one, which is Dhamma Vichaya, investigation.
How do you like my hair? I had my hair cut today.
Nice.
Oh, sorry.
Can we mute Samantha?
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry. I was talking to my mom.
That's all right.
Just,
and then
just so okay, then sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry. And then that second factor of awakening, Dhamma Vichaya, then conditions the next one, Virya, which is what we're going to be talking about today and also next week. It's a very big topic. And then when Virya starts to strengthen, when effort starts to strengthen, we then have that beautiful joy, that piti, that really lifts everything. It lifts the body, it lifts the mind. And then in turn, the piti, that joy, calms the body and calms the mind. Passaddhi, tranquility. And then the tranquility in turn conditions samadhi, unification. And then the samadhi conditions the final one, which is equanimity, upekkha, which is really that wonderful relationship of the mind, of equanimity, of not being shaken by anything, just seeing things as they are, as they arise and pass away. So, Virya plays such a central role in the entire path that not just of the awakening, but the 7 awakening factors, but of all 37, what's known as bodhipakkhya, factors of enlightenment, which includes the awakening factors, the Bojjhanga, the 7, but also includes the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 right efforts, the 4 spiritual powers. It also, which are the iddhipada, it also includes the 5 indriya, the 5 faculties. It also includes the 5 powers, the 7 factors of awakening, as I just said, and the 8-fold path. So all of those together, those 37 factors, are basically, that is the Dhamma. So when the Buddha summarized the Dhamma in the Parinibbana Sutta, he actually he listed these 37 factors as the Dhamma. So if you actually look at those 37 factors, a lot of them repeat. And the one that repeats the most is actually Virya. It occurs, really interestingly, it occurs even more often than sati. So Virya, effort, right effort, is absolutely central to success in the path. So today we're going to really start to drill down into what the Buddha is speaking about in terms of Virya, particularly in the context of the awakening factors. And it actually counters all of the hindrances, all of the 5 hindrances. As you will probably all know, it's very, very often spoken as the primary way of countering sloth and torpor. So, you know, when you're sleepy, when you're feeling lazy, what is the main way you deal with that? Effort. But actually, all of the hindrances need it. So today we're going to do a guided meditative process, as we always do. And we're then going to look at the Buddha's most common way of speaking about effort, about speaking about Viriya, which is really the 4 right efforts. So we're going to look at what all of them are. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have come across them many times. But we're actually going to look at them in a more systematic way than we often do in our practice, and take them one by one and ask, in our own lives, in our own practice, so for each of us individually, how do these 4 right efforts apply? Because we all have different minds. For all of us, different, both unwholesome factors arise, commonly arise, and different wholesome factors commonly arise. So really starting to get clear about which factors really afflict our minds in particular, and in what kinds of ways, in what kind of settings in our lives, and in our classical practice, in our sits, is extraordinarily helpful. So just going through the 4 right efforts one by one really helps us to see our own mind. That makes sense. To actually, it's almost like it is actually very much like shining a light on our minds, and therefore on our whole lives, because our life basically is our mind, is a manifestation of our mind. So we're really getting to look at what our lives really comprise. Before we do that, well, let's do a guided process. For those of you who aren't in England, you might not know that it's crazily warm here. It's like a summer's day, even though we're in the 1st of May. And so every child and every child's dog and their grandmother is outside playing football and various other things. So I apologize if there are various screeches and barks and goodness knows what while you're doing your metta. Okay. So in your own time, well, first of all, find a nice posture for our sitting. And a wonderful place to begin with that is how we're sitting right now. Bringing awareness, bringing clear comprehension, sampajanya, really to how the body is arranged right now. And most, if not all of you, will be sitting already. You can also do this in a different posture if that suits you better. You can do this standing if you like. Or you can even do it walking up and down if you like. Even lying down. And that's helpful to always drop in the mind at the beginning of any practice, which is what posture is most going to support my mind now. So given the condition of the mind, given the condition of the body right now, which posture will most suit the practice, will most suit the abandoning of any akusala, any unskillful, any unwholesome states, and the bringing forth of any wholesome states, kusala states. So, for example, if we're feeling tired, we're feeling lazy, then sitting may not be the best posture. On the other hand, if we've had a very busy day, we've been running around a lot, and the mind is a bit agitated, sitting can be fantastic. Walking, of course, is wonderful if the mind is a bit heavy, is a bit sleepy. Helps to energize the mind. It helps to really build samadhi. So really bringing attention and clear intentionality to posture, and which posture we're actually choosing, rather than letting whatever defilements might be arising in the mind choose the posture for us, is very, very important. So often in the practice, including the choice of posture, if we're not careful, if we're not really mindful, if we're not really clearly seeing, comprehending the mind, and comprehending the body, what happens is whatever's going on in the mind unconsciously guides the practice. And so if the mind is full of delusion, for example, agitation, craving, any unwholesome state, that will often condition the choice of practice and the choice of posture. So what we're doing now is just really looking, okay, given what's so right now in the body and in the mind, what is the best posture for me? So in whatever posture you're in, you've chosen, a wonderful first step is bringing awareness to that posture that you've now intentionally chosen. So if you're sitting, to know sitting. Okay, so this is the posture of sitting. If you're walking, the same thing. This is the posture of walking. Or if there's another posture, to know that posture just as it is. And remembering that postures, the 4 postures, the Buddha specified them specifically in the first foundation of mindfulness. So posture, mindfulness of posture, clear comprehension of posture, is a very, very powerful gateway to the practice, a gateway to calming the mind and body, and ultimately to insight, to knowing things as they are. That simple, simple act of knowing posture, just as it is, sitting as sitting, walking as walking, standing as standing, lying down as lying down, knowing posture as posture. And as you're doing that, as we're doing that, to see just however the body is arranged. If we're sitting, how are the limbs arranged? How are the arms arranged? If we're walking, awareness of the pace that we're walking at. Is it slow or fast? And so in doing so, we're bringing sharper awareness, clearer awareness to what's so, to what's so. And in whatever posture we're in, we can also bring awareness to the state of the body, whether there's any tension anywhere. Gently scanning the body, starting with the head, the crown of the head, and bringing that down across the face, back of the head, down through the jaw and the neck. Just seeing whether there's any holding on, and bringing that awareness down to the shoulders. Sometimes it can help with the shoulders just to gently lift them a little bit. And drop them, drop them. And sometimes we might notice that in doing that, we're unconsciously holding the shoulders up a little bit. Such is what tension often does. Just relaxing the shoulders, gently lifting and dropping, gently dropping. Bringing the awareness down now through the arms, the upper arms at the front and the back, the bicep and the triceps that do all the work when we move our arms around during the day, bending the arm, straightening the arms. And the forearms do so much work when we grab things, when we pick up our cups, our teacups, hold a knife and fork. These muscles in the forearms do a lot of work. So just seeing there if there's any holding on, down through the wrists, into the hands. And again, these hands are full of so many different muscles, tendons that work hard for us during the day, helping us type, helping us hold on to things, do our buttons up, holding our pens, so many things. And so just bringing the mind, bringing the awareness into the hands. Again, just seeing if there's any tension there. Just being very kind to our bodies. Now into the torso, to the chest, and the back, full of very big muscles which support us, that keep the body upright as we're sitting, as we're walking. And all of our movement, almost all of our movement, we use these muscles to push and pull, to stand, keep standing, to sit, keep sitting. Down also into the abdomen, where all the supporting muscles for breathing work for us during the day and the night, keeping this body going, working hard. And so we're being very gentle towards our bodies, kind, taking care of them. In doing so, looking after ourselves in a very important way. Because these bodies that take us through our daily lives are also the very same bodies that we need to keep us going all the way to liberation, as far as we can go in this very life. This life is so precious, to use it wisely, to take care of these bodies. Bringing the awareness down now into the hips, the upper legs, front of the upper legs, those huge muscles, the quadriceps that lift our legs every time we walk, with every single step, and the hamstrings, the back. Allow us to move even simple actions like standing, like getting out of bed, getting back into bed, none of which would be possible without these very powerful muscles. Looking particularly at the back of the legs with our awareness, the hamstrings. Quite often that's where tension is stored. Down into the knees and below the knees. Again, these big powerful muscles of the calves. Every step we take, they work hard. Going all the way down, the tendon at the back, the Achilles tendon, all the way down to the heel. And down to the foot, bringing our awareness down to the feet. Especially the soles of the feet. These very, very sensitive parts of our body. The tops of the feet too. Also where there are many muscles, many sinews. And the toes. So whatever posture we're in, whatever posture we're carrying the body, we have awareness of that body. And one of the things we notice when we bring awareness to the body is that the sensations in the body are continually changing. It's in a constant state of flux, even when we're sitting still. We notice that there are many different types of sensations. As we bring the attention to the body, we notice that many of the sensations are related to those solid parts of the body. Earth element. The muscles, the bones, the sinews, the heart, the lungs, diaphragm, the spleen, the intestines, skin, teeth, nails, and indeed the hair on the body, hair on the head, kidneys, the 20 parts of the body, including the brain, which those of us who reflect on the different parts of the body, doing 32 parts, those parts which are primarily earth elements. And the sensations that are related to the earth elements, such as pressure, such as heaviness, such as lightness, such as roughness, such a smoothness. And many other sensations related to those. This is earth element. And as we pay attention, really pay attention to earth elements in the body, noticing that these sensations change, and that anything that changes cannot rightly be regarded as me, as mine, as myself. That this earth element doesn't belong to anybody, not to me, not to anybody. It's entirely impersonal. It's no different to any of the earth element outside of us. The chair that we might be sitting on, the wall, the floor, all of it, earth elements, all of it, whether it's internal, it's part of the body, or it's external, is all not self. It's all anatta. This is not mine. This is not me. It is not myself. And similarly, as we have our attention in the body, clearly comprehending the body, we also notice sensations related to the water element. Different parts of the body that are primarily liquid. Such as bile, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, oil of the joints, and other body parts. All of these are primarily water elements. We experience this water element as cohesion in the body. Sometimes as flowing. And again, as we really pay attention, we notice that water element, just like earth element, is constantly changing. And so too, that which constantly changes, that which is impermanent, cannot be called, cannot be rightly regarded as mine, as me, as myself. It is anatta. And this water element is parts of the body that are water elements, are just as empty of self as anything outside the body, as the water that when we turn on a tap, as the rivers we walk past, as the rain that falls, as the tea that we drink, or any other liquid, whether it's internal, whether it's external. The water element is anatta, is not self. It does not belong to me. It is not me. It is not mine. It is not myself. It's just empty water elements, empty of self. And so too, as we bring this mindfulness to the body, we can also notice temperature, different variations of hot and cold, warmth and coolness. We might notice that different parts of the body have different temperatures. And in doing so, we're bringing awareness to the fire element, that which maintains the body at an even temperature, enough to sustain life. It's that which digests our food, that which causes aging. The fire element. And again, noticing that it too changes. Even while keeping the body at a sustainable temperature, we really pay attention. We see a lot of variations and changes. Even as we go through our daily lives, when it gets a bit cool, we find ourselves putting pullovers on. When it gets warm, we wish to take layers off. The mind reacting to change, physical change in temperature. And that which changes, just like the earth element, just like the water element, cannot be rightly regarded as mine, as me, as myself. And this fire element, whether it's in the body or it's outside the body, temperature of anything outside the body, temperature of the stove when we touch it, or the fridge, or of any furniture that we ever touch, or the air itself, temperature of anything external, just as that does not belong to anybody, so too the fire element in the body, internally, does not belong to us. It's anatta. Continually subject to change. And also, while we're bringing this mindfulness, this clear comprehension to the body, you can also be aware of wind element. For example, breathing. It's wind traveling through the body, creating movement. Because every time there is movement, the wind element is involved. And if we pay subtle attention, you can really pick up movement, different types in the body. Wind element. And notice that it too is continually changing. And that too, just like everything else, like the earth element, like the water element, like the fire element, that which changes cannot be rightly regarded as self, as myself. Anything that is impermanent, that is not steady, that is not constant, cannot be myself. It cannot be me. It cannot be mine. Just like anything external, which is wind element. When we watch a tree, the leaves moving around and created by the wind. Or anything else that has movement in it. Wind element. And just as none of that belongs to anybody, whether the wind element is external or internal, it is not mine. It doesn't belong to anybody. And the wind element in this body is not mine or me or myself. And the Buddha said, just as this body is composed of these four elements, continually changing, if we consider, we take the earth elements, the great earth elements, we consider how over great expanses of time, the earth elements can be covered by the water elements, or enormous tracts of land can be covered by seas and by oceans. In other words, even the enormous earth elements out in the world is impermanent. So how could we regard anything in this body as permanent? Or if we consider the great water elements, the oceans themselves, over great expanses of time, many millions of years, even oceans dry up. If even oceans dry up, if even oceans are impermanent, subject to change, how could anything that is water element in these bodies of ours, how could that be permanent? How could that belong to us? Or if we consider the fire element, the great fire element, it burns down entire forests, enormous parts of land, that even that great fire, when it reaches the sea, or it reaches a part of the land where there is nothing to burn, even that great fire will die down. Even that great fire is impermanent. How could the fire element in our own bodies, how could that be permanent? How could that be stable and lasting? Or the wind element, the great wind element, that which causes hurricanes, cyclones, which can destroy entire towns and cities. And yet even that cease to the extent that on a very, very still day, there is no breeze at all. If even the great wind element can change that much, how could the wind element in our own bodies be permanent, be lasting at all? And so reflecting in this way, we can truly know that this body is completely insubstantial. It does not last at all. It can be compared, as the Buddha said, to foam. It has no substance. It is continually changing. And one day, at the end of this life, it will simply be like a rotten log, as the Buddha said, useless like a rotten log. So by regarding the body as it is, in this way, we can really know there is nothing here to cling to. There is nothing permanent. It is entirely anicca. And because it is entirely anicca, there is nothing inherently satisfactory about it. It is dukkha. And that which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, is subject to change, continual change, cannot be rightly regarded as self. It is anatta. And it is this seeing that is the way to liberation. And the body is seen this way, as it actually is. It is the path to freedom. The end of all suffering. To the highest happiness. Because as the body, its nature becomes clear, so too everything that arises dependent upon it. Everything that is also mental, all the feelings, all of the perceptions, all of the thoughts, all of the memories, all of the plans, and the consciousness that arises, knowing each moment. It also sees that all of that too, is also completely impermanent, is also anicca, is also dukkha, is also anatta. It knows that nothing that is physical and nothing that is mental is any substance, anything that can be depended upon. This, just this, is the path to freedom. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can gently allow them to open. Bring the awareness into the room. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to spend the second half of our session, as we spoke about right at the start of the session, on Virya. What is it? How did the Buddha speak about it? Why is it so important? Why is it so key? How can we bring it forth in all of our practice in daily life, as you go through all of the things that we go through during our lives, our daily lives, and when we sit on the cushion, or we're doing our classical walking practice or standing practice, whatever our formal practice is. So whatever practice we're doing in daily life or formal practice, how can we bring forth this quality of virya? So the Buddha spoke about virya many, many times, and in many ways. But there's one way in particular I mentioned right at the start, which, when we really clearly see that, the entire Dhamma actually becomes visible. So for this little exercise we're going to do now, if you have your Dhamma diaries to hand, Dhamma journals, that would be extremely useful, because actually this exercise is very powerful to actually write. And I'm actually going to suggest that, really, I mean, actually, as with everything in the Dhamma diary, but this particularly, this is something which will start today, but you can actually use this as a tool really until Nibbana, until you reach the end of the path. I started doing this about this thing that we're going to talk about. I started doing this about 10 years ago. And it's provided me a kind of a way of seeing my mind, seeing the practice, which has been just phenomenal. I mean, really phenomenal. So, how did the Buddha speak about this? So, in quite a few of the suttas, the Buddha says, he actually asks the question, and what is right effort? Kamacha, samma vayama, what is right effort? And then he gives the four parts of it. So I'm going to suggest in your Dhamma diary, if you have it to hand, if you don't have your actual diary to hand, then a piece of paper, or you can type it into your computer. If you just open a little Google Doc or a Word doc or something like that. So the Buddha says here, and then he says a bhikkhu. So a bhikkhu, as you all know, is a monk, but really he's talking to everybody. So this is a monk, as in male or female, but not just ordained. So he's talking to all of us. So here a bhikkhu, awaken zeal. I'll give you the Pali in a minute. Awaken zeal for the non-arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome states. He puts forth efforts. He arouses energy. He exerts his mind and strives. So what does that mean? Like for us, for all of us, what exactly does that mean? So let's start at the beginning of it. So he awakens zeal. So that the Pali chandan janeti. So chandan, as you know, is desire, zeal, and janeti. So it's like that bringing forth for the non-arising, anupadaya, the non-arising of unarisen, anupananan, evil. Evil is a translation of papakanan. So it's like darkness in the mind. Papakanan, akusalanan. So unskillful, unwholesome states. So for all of us, what are these unarisen states that the Buddha is speaking about, and how can we bring forth efforts that they don't arise? So if you just look in the mind right now and just ask, okay, of all of the dark states of mind that the Buddha mentioned, so let's start with the triple unwholesome root. That's a good way to start with it. So craving. It's many shapes and forms. Aversion, again, of many shapes and forms. And delusion, ignorance, also of many types. So if any of those are not arising right now, so let's say if you look in the mind and it's like, okay, it feels calm, it feels caring, let's say. In other words, aversion is not arising. Let's say. That means that particular quality of heart and mind is not arising right now. So the Buddha is saying that we should awaken zeal, awaken desire, chandanjaneti. We should arouse effort, vayamati. We should arouse energy, viriyam aravati. So it's really arouse effort. We should exert our mind, chittan pakkanati. We should exert our mind and strive, padati. For what? That these states, let's take aversion just as an example, do not arise in the future. So really key here is these two qualities that the Buddha speaks about so often in the suttas. Of the Pali is hiri ottappa, which I'm sure many of you know. So the hiri is that sense of conscience, that knowledge in the heart that these states of craving, of aversion, of delusion, and all of their many aspects are painful, are not good, they lead in the direction of suffering. And then the ottappa is that fear of the consequences. So if craving were to arise in my mind, if aversion were to arise in my mind, if delusion were to arise in my mind, that will be for my harm. That will be for the harm of others around me. That will be for the harm of everybody. And so there's that. It's like in each moment, there's like that commitment to keeping the mind as pure as possible and not allowing these qualities of heart and mind that hurt us to arise. So it's very interesting. It's a commitment to purity and to the knowledge that even though right now they may not be arising, we also do not want them to arise in the future. So how could we do that? Okay, well, let's take aversion as an example. We talked about that a lot over the past couple of sessions. So we've talked about how anger is so painful, how anger causes so much harm in our relationships, causes harm to ourselves. It makes us age faster. It can make us ill, like really ill. Anger has that horrible quality. And so in following the Buddha's instruction here, we are exerting efforts, we are arousing efforts, we are arousing desire, zeal even, that will not arise in the future. So no matter what happens, as we go through our daily life, or as we go through our classical sits, all of the stuff that's probably going to happen this evening, tomorrow, next week, over the coming month, when we come into contact with unpleasant things, people say things that we don't like, we turn on the news and the latest craziness unfolds as we're looking at it. No matter what happens, these states which cause us harm, we're committed right now, in each moment, literally in each moment. It's like there's that sense, there's that desire that they will not arise. And this intention, it's an active intention of the mind that the bad stuff, unwholesome stuff, things which are akusala, as the Buddha calls them, papakana, which is a very strong word, evil states, that they do not arise, is a really critical part of our effort right now, as we go through our days, as we go to work, as we sit with our families, as we have discussions with our loved ones, as we sit and do our breath meditation. It doesn't matter what it is, but in each moment, it's like the mind's clear. These states are not good for me. They're not good for anybody around me. They cause harm. They will cause harm if they arise. So it's like it's a clarity of mind. It's a clarity of heart. It's like, purity. Keep the mind pure. And it requires intention. It requires effort. It doesn't happen by itself. So if that effort is not there, if that intention is not there, then when conditions arise, unpleasant conditions arise, which they will, then the mind is going to be much more inclined to allow these states to arise and to do us damage. And then the second part of the second of the four right efforts is to do with anything that's arising right now, which is painful, which is unwholesome. So in this case, the Buddha says, he or she awakens zeal for the abandoning of arisen unwholesome states. So in other words, these are not things which may arise in the future. They are arising right now in this particular moment. So anything unwholesome is arising in the moment, that there's a clear effort, clear energy to abandon it. The Pali for abandon, pahanaya, occurs so much throughout the discourses that anything that's for our harm, that's for the harm of others around us, is to be abandoned. It is not to be held. It is not to be nurtured. It is not to be tolerated. It is to be abandoned. So with this, it's that really strong intention again, that anything that we see as it arises, let's say anger arises, let's say, as we talked about, I think in the very first session, if we're married and in a relationship and lust particularly for somebody else who's not our partner arises, there isn't a tolerating of it in the mind. There's a clear bringing forth of energy to abandon it. So again, and the Buddha goes through the same sequence of instructions, chandanjaneti, so he or she awakens desire, awakens zeal, vayamati. So vayamati, that really has the quality of arousing energy, putting forth effort, viryam arabati, and then chittan padganhati. So he exerts his mind, or her mind, exerts the mind to, and then strives. But striving, the Pali is padahati, strives. So he gives like a whole series of instructions, all involving actual application, not just allowing it to happen. And this is really important because particularly there's quite a lot of sort of popular, I'm going to call it sort of popular wisdom around that things like anger are part of us. So there are various things around that. So one is that the Buddha was very, very clear that anything that arises is not self, is anatta. So it can't belong to any kind of self. There's no self that it belongs to. Point number one. Point number two, he's also very, very clear that these states, particularly anger, hatred, resentment, bitterness, just to talk about some of the jealousy, envy, and we're just talking about aversion right now, that these are very, very harmful. And the clearer our heart and mind gets about it, the less willing it is to tolerate it, to nurture it. There's a passage where he talks about how when there isn't clear awareness of this, we nurture these states of anger or hatred as if they were our children, which is very, very telling, So that the Buddha is saying these are harmful. They will hurt us. They do hurt us. They have hurt us and to an infinite amount in the past, and will do going forward, unless we follow his instructions. We can talk about this a little bit later on, but it is very worth there was actually an interesting bit in the chat. Actually, Matisha, maybe we can, if you can recall exactly what it was, but there are sometimes, so let's say anger arises. Let's say something really painful arises like that, anger, hatred. There is a very interesting and important question about what this abandoning actually looks like. So sometimes we can, in our effort to let go of it, actually resist it. So in other words, there isn't like an actual letting go. There's a pushing against it, which can actually even make it worse. So part of the efforts, part of the what it's talking about is actually bringing clear, gentle, kind, loving awareness to it, which seems a little bit paradoxical, right? On the one hand, it's like strong effort, exerting ourselves to actually abandon it. Sometimes, in fact, quite often, especially with the really difficult, painful states, what that strong, courageous effort looks like is actually a lot of gentleness. There's a lot of patience. There's a lot of softness. So, in other words, that is not to be confused with tolerance. You're not just kind of accepting and allowing it to continue. There is the intention to abandon it, but it's in a soft way. It's in a very gentle way. It's bringing the mindfulness close up to it. It's like, this is anger, or this is hatred, this is resentment, this is what it's like, this is what it feels like. So that's not tolerance. That's bringing right effort. That's that sati, that sampajanya, that mindfulness, that clear comprehension. That is right effort. And there's quite often confusion around this, that somehow bringing mindfulness, bringing loving kindness to these states is tolerating them and not abandoning. That's not accurate. So the abandoning often, particularly with very difficult states like this, craving too, actually, really any difficult state, often involves softness, because the letting go, which is what we're trying to do, requires relaxation. It requires just relaxing into it. So I'd definitely like to take some thoughts on that, to make sure that that's really, really clear, that soft heart, soft mind is not the same as tolerating it. Right?
Yeah, I think what's really useful, I really love what you just said. I think it's really useful to distinguish between the heart and mind that's experiencing the anger and the anger itself. And with that distinction, because there's this sense of self, and it's like I'm so upset with myself for being angry again, getting so upset. If we can distinguish that there's the heart and mind, which is pure and radiant, and it's afflicted by anger. It's overcome by anger. It's dominated by anger. It's possessed by anger. Then I think that gives for me anyway, it gives a really good framework for the softness and the gentleness and the love and compassion. So I don't have to be loving to the anger as a mental factor, but I can love the heart that's afflicted by anger, that's experiencing and expressing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Matisha? You're on mute, Matisha.
Yes, so I agree with you. In terms of just tolerating the recent development, there is a lot of that. I think, as you mentioned, in the sort of Western popular media, you hear this thing about being mindful of the anger and just waiting until it passes. Whereas I think I always felt in the Buddha's teachings, he was more about dispelling, getting rid of, removing the defilement. So I think the mistake is in Satipatthana mindfulness, we are supposed to just watch. Maybe they thought that then if a defilement arises, you're supposed to just watch that as well. Whereas you could do a lot more, like developing metta at that point and working on that defilement. So yeah, definitely that's one point. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I think when anger rises, there is something to learn from it, not necessarily agree to its continuation, but rather something to learn from it. So, for example, um, a young child is abused by a parent, and the child becomes angry, it would be bad to tell the child to just develop metta towards the parent. Because the feelings are pointing towards a problem. While when we are saying we are not saying continue with the anger, but actually learn from the anger what it is pointing towards, what it is telling you, and take the certain necessary steps and measures to stop being in that situation going forward, or tell a teacher or something. So I think anger has a role in teaching us something, but not for us to dwell on the anger. Yeah, that's my view of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No question. It can arise conditioned by things that are clearly not good, that are clearly where people are doing bad things, where that's the proximate cause, and no question, in instances like the one you mentioned, there is appropriate action that needs to be taken. So yeah, definitely. Any more thoughts about this? This is such a big topic.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, Dale.
Right. Thank you for this. I'm sorry I missed the first part of it. I had told Gyanta that because of the data chain that I was missing. So I'm sorry that I was not there at the very beginning, but I did come on when I could. And I just wanted to say a very recent experience on this point that I had. And I really like to have hear all your thoughts about it. So this was the exact thing that when you feel, and the emotion here was irritation and anger that comes up. And it happened, in fact, just today, because I was somewhere else and I had to get in here. And I had timed it and I tried to get in. And of course, because it was close upon end of the work day, the roads were all blocked. And though the sat-nav said that I could go, some of them had road works and there were huge blocks, and we were not diverted to go on the things that the path that I could have got here on time. And I felt frustration and anger and irritation. And now I realized in my thinking mind, I wasn't meditating, but I was being very aware of what the feelings were in my mind at the moment. So I realized that I was getting angry, and that anger only will beget anger because you reflect something, and that's what you're drawing. And I didn't want to get late. So first I started saying, oh my gosh, everybody's on this. And then I realized it was getting worse. So I dropped that anger and instead had exactly as you said, I had intense compassion and love for everyone who was in the same situation as me, was trying to get in somewhere. They couldn't. And it's unbelievable what happened. Because somehow or other, though, when you are turned into a road, there were a whole lot of cars. All of a sudden, it cleared up. And I could come in, and I couldn't come here by 6 o'clock, but I certainly could come back if that had continued like that. I couldn't. And I was so amazed when I was watching this. And I told my husband, can you imagine, right? This is what I did. No, I didn't know it was a thing to do or anything. It was just my mind saying, right, what am I doing? I'm getting even more angry. And it's been reflected on not very good outcomes. And then I, got softness in there, and it wasn't just tolerating it, and it wasn't, but it was certainly not perpetuating it or making it more. And it actually changed the mind. And only this within the 24 hours, because in different ways, my daughter and we were all practicing on this, how we can change this states of mind that come not when we are meditating, but when we are doing other things. And when people, when you're explaining something to someone which seems so obvious to us, and that person has a different opinion and keeps on wanting to do something else, and it's something that you have to jointly do because you're a part of a team that is trying to get an outcome at work or something, and it's so important and it's so clear to you, but people come from different opinions and views, and it's a part of the skill of a team manager to be able to get everybody and to find a way that everyone's needs are looked at things. But that's a skill one learns, and my daughter is in the process of doing that. But what happens that when you do that, she was saying, Mom, without saying that, you're right. That's what all your training is. But it never comes when you're trying to convince other people who think otherwise. You're getting more and more irritated. They're more and more resistant. And at the end of it, nothing comes out. But when you just get softened into it and you actually truly listen to what they're saying, and not coming with your view because you have been trained and you've gone to the best training course and that that's what all the, with the research and so on, and, there's peer review literature on this. No, but you listen with nothing in your mind at what they're saying. You come from a different thing, and what comes out is something that you didn't even think of, but it emerged in that point, but something that everybody could take on and actually move something on. So when I heard within the last 24 hours in two different scenarios, I've actually witnessed and experienced this. And when I came back, I was thinking after this, whenever things happen that I don't want and I feel this with this anger. Now, I never tried this when I want to crave because I have a craving for chocolate. I have never done that. But trying to say I'm not going to eat, but I'm going to try that. It never works. I will go on to the next piece and the next piece, right? But I'm going to have a different but certainly I've looked at the frustration and things when you want something to happen, like for the traffic to stop, or you want to have a decision that you think everybody in the team should do something. It definitely has proved for me in one instance for my daughter. And I think that what all of you are saying, particularly you, Paul, you brought this out, is absolutely something which I'm experiencing at this very moment. And I'm very grateful for your thoughts on this, because I really believe that is the way forward. Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Yeah, so wonderful to hear you sharing about it, and I love your traffic story. That's so great. If you look at really what's at the heart of what you're doing, like those stories that you just shared, those instances that you just shared, the Buddha said that nothing is so crucial and causal in the arising of the unwholesome, bad things, as unwise attention. And then on the opposite side, nothing is so causal, crucial in the arising of good things, the wholesome, the kusala, as wise attention. So if you think about those stories that you just shared, those instances that you just shared, they were beautiful examples of wise attention. Like in the traffic jam, exactly as you said, you could have paid attention to the anger that was arising, and the stories that start arising in the mind, and just paid attention to that, just let them go and spin, and the anger just would have gotten worse, right? But instead you interrupted it by reflecting wisely, and everything changed completely. And so too in the other instance you gave about what happens when you're trying to work with people and they don't get it, and had you paid attention to the frustration and just kind of let the annoyance, the annoyance in the mind run, and oh my god, this person's so stupid, I can't believe they're wasting my time. Imagine you sat doing that, what would have happened? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, it makes perfect sense, and it's something that all the time I have to think about letting go, and you're really bringing a lot of resistance trying to let go something when habitually for so many births, and I think God, you have responded with sense of self that when somebody does something that you don't want to happen, and when you know the answer, is something else, that you reject, and you're so grasping your own views and opinions, right? They may be right, but they may be true, but they're actually the wrong thing to have at that time. And I've always tried to say, oh, I see anger coming in and frustration, and it never really works. It takes a little while to realize, oh gosh, you've said something with a raised voice about 3 times, and the other person, as you say, because we have this thing, somebody said, oh, you're raising your voice, and then I say, oh, I'm sorry, right? But it needs somebody else to tell you, because we're all practicing in our house, and all of us are very aware that these are common things, and the person who is listening realizes, and that, oh, why are you shouting now, and why are you raising your voice? And then you realize, but there you have to have someone else, a Kalyana Mitra or somebody else who's practicing, to actually point, look what you're doing, right? You're just shouting and screaming. But this method is different, because you yourself, right, have suddenly realized and done something. So you don't have to have somebody else to tell you, because you may not always be in the environment of a family member or a Kalyana Mitra who is there to tell you, right? You may be with outsiders, strangers, work colleagues, and they are not there to make you do the right thing, or in Buddhist terms or whatever. So, I mean, it's so new. It was within this last 24 hours, right? And that both this, and my daughter was marveling and says, Mom, try this, it works wonders. And somebody had told her, nothing in a Buddhist context, but somebody who is working with the mind had told her, try this and see. And for me, it was just that, I don't know why I thought about it, but I realized that what I was doing didn't give me the results. It was getting it worse. And some streak of wisdom came into my mind. Let's just be kind towards this. So I think for me, it's a real aha moment. And I'm really grateful for this group, and for Gihanta, and for Ron and Matisha and all of you for giving us this wonderful golden opportunity, which is such a big, for me, such a big thing, because it's very easy to be know all. You read this, you read that, and think that, right. And I remember Ajahn Sumedho always, right now, but true, and true but not right. And that you've always, the very thing that you said, that it's, if you put wrong attention, if your attention on an unwholesome thing, and you keep on at it, then that's the worst you can do. And on the other hand, the right attention, so always kindness is better than rejection and frustration and things like that. So thank you very much for me.
Thank you, Dil. That's really, really wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to do a short exercise in our Dhamma diaries related to all of this. And the exercise is this. So if you look at your life, one of the things that becomes clear when we really look at our minds with right effort, in the way that the Buddha is speaking about, is that there are certain unwholesome, unskillful qualities of mind that we tolerate. So we can tolerate them because we don't even notice them. That it might be that. Very often it's that. It can be, but it can also be toleration through thinking it's not that big a deal. It can also be toleration through thinking that it's actually fine. It's even like a good thing. So you could give many examples, but let's take anger, since we've been talking about that. We might think, well, I'm right to be angry. It's like this concept of righteous anger. It's they did this bad stuff to me, and it's perfectly right and okay that I be angry in response to that. So righteous anger would be an example. But there can be many other states, like, for example, jealousy, like envy, could be our neighbor's got a new car, or they've just painted their house a fantastic color, and there's a subtle kind of envy in the mind that we just tolerate. It's just like, not even necessarily notice it very much. Although we might tell somebody else, "Oh, yeah, I really like what their new car. I really like what they've done." So there's, but not in a mudita sense. There's actually a sense of envy about it, a sense of jealousy, but it's being tolerated by the mind, or craving. So many forms of craving, which we can end up tolerating through just thinking that it's okay, thinking it's not really hurting us very much. And so this toleration is harmful for us. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and just look, and this is not easy to do. It's not at all easy to do. But just look at it, if there's anything in our lives where there's something going on in the mind, commonly arising in the mind, which we are basically allowing it to happen, allowing it to continue. So it might be in the field of aversion. Could be something that we're continually anxious about, and not doing anything about it. It's just like an anxiety, a fear that keeps arising in the mind, but we haven't resolved to fix it. So it could be something around fear, anxiety, nervousness. It could be something around, harsh aversion, resentment, something that we're resentful about, and the resentment just keeps going, just keeps running. It could be something where there's strong desire, lust for something or someone. Again, it just keeps going, and we just kind of become like, oh, okay, yeah, that's just how it is. It could be a particular kind of conceit, kind of like a particular arrogance of mind or pride, strong pride, which we know is there, and the mind has kind of gotten to a place of like, yeah, that's how it is. That's just how I am. And many other possible things. So the exercise is to look, is there any unwholesomeness, anything which is, as the Buddha says, papakanan, which is actually evil, akusalanan, unwholesome, unskillful. So, as I said earlier, a great place to start is the triple unwholesome root of craving and many forms of desire, aversion, many forms of aversion, or ignorance, and the many ways that shows up. It could be something quite subtle, which is also related to ignorance, like, for example, laziness. We're pretty lazy. We just lounge around a lot, and we've gotten so used to it. It's just such a habit of mind that it's just like, okay, that's just how it is. That's just how my life is. It just flows along, and it's like, okay, whatever. It could be anything like that. So this is kind of like a sort of a mindful brainstorm, if you like, just looking at your life, looking at various aspects of your life, looking at how you react to things, looking at your habitual behavior as you go through a day. Are there any underlying mind states of heart and mind that you're tolerating or maybe tolerating? Okay, just give you a couple of minutes. Okay, just another 30 seconds. All right. So it would be very good just to hear any shares on that. So anything that you saw in your mind that you're tolerating, you're just letting it go, you're letting it run. I can't believe nobody thought of anything.
I don't mind sharing. I'm showing them my most vulnerable side, but if nobody else is, I can. So if nobody else is doing, I can share. Do you want me to share, Paul?
I'd be delighted, Dill. Thank you so much.
Okay, right. You're seeing the worst side of me, but I don't mind because we've come here to learn. So it is very interesting. First time I've ever done this. And I saw all kinds of things that I never would have dreamt of. So one of the first things that came to my mind, you spoke about envy. And, you know, so I'm not going to mention name, but one of my very close family members, when I say something that somebody else has, because they have something that we really, really wanted, maybe a neighbor, maybe a very good friend, and I say it, there's always a laugh that comes in. And this laugh, I've heard somebody else doing, and we both, it's a very scornful laugh. So the envy doesn't come as in, and how you recognize it. So you say something, but oh, you know, so and so, they've gone on this, or they've done this, or see something that you had really wanted, but never got down to it for whatever reason. Maybe you didn't have the time, the money, whatever. The other person feels a lot of envy, but responds by saying, oh, yes, but with a very scornful laugh. And you identify it. And so every time now when I hear that, I said, oh, yes, you know, this is a terrible thing. You know, you're really very scornful. And it's like regret and doubt. And nobody really talks about when you do the Chaitasikas about, when you talk about doubt and regret and all that kind of thing. But no, like jealousy, things, but scorn. But and so that's something which I picked up. So there is actually scorn that comes in, but that is envy that is coming, and you think it's quite all right because you're laughing, so it's okay and you tolerate. So that's one thing that came. The other thing was something else about the craving, and I don't generally overeat, and I don't have to kind of lose weight, but I have to be watchful of what I eat because otherwise I tend to take one particular thing, chocolate, too much. And my thing is I tolerate it because I think, oh, I don't eat other desserts, and I don't eat, you know, when I go somewhere, I don't eat, there are maybe so many very nice desserts. I go straight only for the chocolate thing. And if that is there, the fact that I overeat that, I said, no, all of you have tasted about 2 or 3, but I only ate one thing. And I'm kind of tolerating and justifying. And I eat dark chocolate. And I said, oh, but this is health reasons, and you can eat dark chocolate. And to see, I've almost eaten, 3/4 of a dark chocolate, right? It's okay because it's dark chocolate. And actually, that's not the way you're supposed to do. So that's another thing. The other thing, what I realized was the desire. So I've only got one child, my daughter, and at the moment she's on the other side of the planet. Now, I always feel that I have very strong desire that, that I'm, because, she's everything for me. But actually, when I have now looked at it to see, because trying to see how I could, I mean, you can think it's impermanent, she's not mine, I have 100 daughters, all these reasons, but they're all still mind-based. But what I realized when I looked at her, that actually the desires really my need. It's like people say when people have been married for a long time and if one partner dies, you think you're missing, but actually what you're doing is that other person had done a lot of things that were actually fulfilled your needs. And what you're missing is not the other person, the fact that your needs are not being done. And I suddenly realized a lot of what I feel for my daughter is because she's very IT literate and I'm really technophobe. And I can't do simple things that other people do. And it's frustrating and annoying. And she's, 24 hours, day and night for her. And I don't want to wake her up, but sometimes it's so needy because something has happened, and otherwise, like the privacy is lost, and I have to wake her, and I hate to wake her, but it's a neediness in me, not really a desire. So I really thought that how we think it's okay, but actually this neediness, and you really got to see that and do something about that, rather than think, oh, you love your daughter so much, and so that's another thing that really came. And the other thing that came up was this laziness, the last one you mentioned. And suddenly, so I have a tendency to work very late in the night, doing Dhamma work mainly from different sources, and sometimes 11, 12, sometimes even till 1. If I'm really interested, I go. So now when I go to bed, my husband has gone around 10 o'clock and I work. In the morning, we normally are early risers. He gets up at about 6 or 7, maybe 7 now these days after the winter. And now I'm still, because I only had about 3 or 4 hours. So I say, no, and I just said, right, it's okay because I only got to bed at 12 o'clock or whatever. So it's okay for me. And what that state, that attitude of tolerance, what it does is that I tend to then, so then my husband has come, then he's coming and then I have to draw the curtains up or do. And I'm watching and saying, oh, it's okay. And I'm very lazily and think it's okay because I've only slept 4 hours and you're supposed to read 6 or 7. And the day starts very late because by the time I actually get up, now it's about 8 o'clock. And my husband has got decided that we have to go and do this or that. And I'm still in my nightie and I'm not doing anything. And this is compounded by the fact that I don't eat breakfast at the time. And now again, I'm saying it's okay. And I tend to go down and I'm starving hungry, and I'm not trying to, because now it's sometimes 10 o'clock in the morning and I haven't had anything because dinner has been around 7 or 8. And so I'm so starving because I'm hypoglycemic. I can't wait to make the healthy porridge or whatever, the fruit or whatever is going to do. I just open the cupboard, and unfortunately, my husband always has these soft Easter buns, whether it's Easter or not. Now I know it's Easter time, but every time you get them. And I just open the cupboard and take one of these hot cross buns. And I just stuff it into my mouth because within 2 seconds that gets eaten, and that satiated me. And I'm saying it's okay. It's okay because I have not eaten now for about 10 hours, and they say intermittent fasting. So, I mean, you stop me, but when you really look at it, there are so many things that you do, and you say it's okay, but actually it's not. So that's just my share. Thank you.
Wow. That was extraordinarily insightful, Dale. Seriously, that was incredible. Yeah, thank you. I mean, you've given us all such a gift, Yeah, no, thank you for being so vulnerable. Yeah, it was
I realize you realize I'm not a very nice person. And the other thing that came up with is anxiety and the fear. So we are at crossroads at the moment because our daughter is somewhere else. We got a home back there. And what are we doing without my daughter here and without rest of the members? And we are getting on in years, and we are seniors. And how are we going to do this shift when there's nobody of ours here? And, now this is something we should have thought, but our circumstances changed because we never ever thought our daughter would go to the other side at this point in time. But that's what happened. It's her life, and it's her destiny. And we're suddenly in this thing. And the uncertainty of it, all of a sudden, you get very anxious, and that's fear. And it's because all of a sudden something you never ever thought, like, you are going in good health and all of a sudden something happened. And that's another thing. And without dealing with it, and you think, no, it'll get resolved, but it never does. And you got this tolerance of it. And actually, your subconscious mind is not in a very good place. And all of a sudden, you think, oh my God, what are we doing? And, you find it so difficult. How are we going to sell up everything and go? Or how are we going to think of a shift or where, and it's not being mindful and doing what you have to do in the moment, but to lull yourself into think, it's okay at the moment, we are okay, but then you can see you can do very much less than before, and you tend to forget much more. So in every one of these things, when you look, if you just look at, craving, aversion, and ignorance, but in every one of these states, there is something there that we tolerate. So maybe it's only my mind, but I realize, how many things that I really I'm not so proud about.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Honestly, Dil, that was stunning. I can't believe you saw so much in your mind so quickly. That's just fantastic.
It's
Thank
a
you
way,
so much.
it's what you do. You make us think. I mean, I had never thought of this before. The other one, I said, actually, the last 24 hours, it had happened. But this first time I've looked at it. But it's the way you explain. At least for me, it's that. And that's what I'm really grateful for Ron and Matisha and also Gyanta for doing this. Because this is what I need, not just listening and listening to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Ron?
Oh yeah, no, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That was awesome, Bill. No,
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, totally to the contrary.
Yeah.
You know, if having any negative judgments, you know, I think Paul, myself, I think so many of us think, you know, she's so aware, she's so wise, she's so honest, you know.
Totally.
No,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's like a mirror, you know, for all. Yeah. And I was looking, you know, and as you were talking, I was getting so much. I was seeing my mind. One of my tendencies, which won't come as a surprise to anybody, is to be very like I look at things and try to understand like the underlying principles, like there's theory and practice, and I try to do the practice, and I love, you know, understanding the theory. So I saw that there's this whole group of things that are just what we consider normal. You know, this is how I am, just how I am, and those are things that basically we're unconscious about, that are like a default, that are the baseline, and those are the things like delusion. The more I practice and the more awake the mind becomes, the more it realizes, oh my God, you know, I not only lived in the past, but I'm living most of my days in some degree of delusion. And so it's not a matter of how deluded, whether I'm deluded or not. It's like, what's the depth of the delusion? And just seeing that as a baseline, because it's fundamental. Like all of the defilements arise within a context of ignorance, within a context of delusion. You know, and we know the antidote. The antidote is to be aware. And when? Now. Okay, well, I was aware now. What about right now? Okay, now that's gone. How about now? You know, and so my intention is to like bring that awareness to the default state of delusion. And then within the delusion, I see, like, it was really great the way you set it up, Paul, and what you shared, Dil. Like I used to do, for about 7 years, I did large seminar trainings with thousands of people. And, you know, I was the trainer, you know, and so through that, there developed like a kind of mana, like a sense of I, that knows. And it's really worthwhile for me, you know, and I'm getting out of this. It's really worthwhile to divide this raft of so many different defilements into categories. One is like, what are my default states? You know, the ones that are just like the given, that are like as I go through the day, like sloth and torpor, a kind of laziness or negligence or tolerance, just putting up with things. Like Paul knows well that, like clearing out possessions, there's all these unnecessary possessions that I've had for years, for decades, you know, that I keep working to get rid of. And it's just a toleration, you know, and it's born out of, I mean, profoundly, it exists in a condition of ignorance. Another group of defilements that I saw relate to relationships. And there's certain relationships that I have, and certain things that happen, things that people say in relationships that trigger anger or upset or aversion. Like, because I've been married with Charadharma, Joan and I have been married for 35 years. I've had 36 years almost now. I've had lots of opportunity to look at it. And it's amazing. It's the same thing. It's like, it shows up at different times, but it's the same kind of trigger. So to identify what is it, what's the button, that gets pushed in certain relationships that consistently evokes anger or upset, like another defilement. And so like the default, the baseline ignorance, the relationship, the different relationships, or when I think of a particular person, even political people these days, certain defilements arise in my mind. And then a third category was like circumstantial. Like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have this an acronym HALT. So if you're hungry, angry, tired, to be aware of those, because when I get tired, when I get fatigued, like what you were sharing, Dil, then the mind is prey. It's subject to certain defilements. So anyway, super extraordinarily useful. So thank you, Paul, and thank you, Dil.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Gihanta?
Yes, very quickly. I do realize we're almost up to time. Just wanted to thank Dil for her courage in terms of what she's shared. Also, in terms of what Ron was sharing, so you mentioned about the delusion, and I think a lot of the times we make various stories for ourselves in life, and these stories, they are very unique to each of us, but they ultimately frame our lives, and I think our lives flow from these stories we make up for ourselves. And sometimes one of those things that I think need to be more aware about is feeling the victim. Sometimes, when things happen, you start thinking you're the victim, and it's sometimes a way to sort of get by. But then I guess you lose your power to change things and improve things. So if you can snap out of that, then you can get some control or power or ability to change things. Whilst if you feel the victim, then you give that opportunity away. So I just thought I should raise that. And then finally, going back to the beginning of the session, you talked about intention, Paul, and the importance of intention, and I think particularly the power of resolution in terms of being able to make sure that we stay away from the unwholesome, the defilements, and so if you can make those very strong resolutions, then I guess as you live life when the context isn't as good, you fall again. You don't fall prey to those situations because you've made those strong resolutions. We don't do enough of that. I think we sometimes do that at the beginning of the year or whatever, but thank you for reminding us of the power of resolution. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Couple of hands up, Ron.
Yes, just a request, because I'm aware that we're nearing the end of the time. We've got 7 factors of enlightenment in 12 months. Virya, 4 right efforts. It's so valuable, so central, that my request is that we continue this over into the next session. Just that.
That is exactly what we're going to do. Yeah. No, thank you very much. Dil, is your hands raised, right?
Yeah, just a very quick short one. I'm very aware of the time. And that's just to say, Ron mentioned something about, I've been practicing for so many years, and that I suddenly realized how much delusion there is. And just as anecdotal to that, the other day, my daughter, because we are all trying to work on ourselves, somebody had told her that if you have an iPhone, that you can set this, I'm sure all of you do it, that you can set this timer where you can bring a moment of awareness to it by having a signal that goes off. Now, I know many years ago, maybe about 15 years ago, when Bhante Gunaratna came and I did a retreat with him in Devon, he introduced this, and he said, if you can set your phone to have a very silent a signal that comes every 1 hour. Of course, I never did it for 15 years ago. Then a moment of awareness when you look deep within and see what you're having, and then you can come back to your center point and get grounded. But it was strange because only about 4 days ago, my daughter said she had done it. And of course, I don't have the technology. And she worked through, and she did this for my husband and for me. And now we have a thing, and you can set this at a time. Anybody can do it if you've got an iPhone. You can set, and I'm sure most of you have done it. You can set this tone to anything there. The first one is called authentic. And this authentic is like if you've been growing up in Sri Lanka or in India or whatever, you'll realize that when you go for certain puja, that they ring this very tiny little bell, but it's got a very clear, sharp ringing sound. Now, if you know about quantum physics now, there's a lot of things about sound healing. People are now looking at sound as something that can actually heal, and it's going to change your DNA, and all kinds of things are coming out from that aspect of science. However, so this is why the ancients always had that particular sound, and if you go for any puja, you have that ringing tone. So my daughter said it was that authentic. So now you won't believe, wherever we are, every half an hour, this thing goes, ting, it comes up. And actually in that moment, whether you're marketing or whether you're shopping or what you're doing, you just look and you suddenly realize you're caught up in some story or the other. And immediately, it helps you to see, right, you're not where you should be. And it has certainly diffused the amount of time I'm lost in the storyline of Sankara that I'm building. I just thought I'd just mention it. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Dale. Very, very helpful. Samantha's asking about, can AI help us with mindfulness? Yes, in many interesting ways. Actually, it's a really interesting question. Let's mark that for next week, because there's quite a lot to say about that. I'm mindful that we're over time, so before I just pass this to Gihanta to close, in terms of practice this month, the more you can do exactly what we've just been doing, the better, the more powerful it will get. So here's my suggestion. We've got this practice of in the morning priming, and then at the end, before you go to bed, reviewing. So here the priming is the first of the right efforts. So it's really that commitment. It's just to that, and to let me actually get the exact wording. Yeah. So you're putting forth effort, arousing zeal for the non-arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome states. So that is the intention for the day. That is the intention for the day. So that anything that's unwholesome, that's going to hurt you or hurt other people, the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is set that intention for the non-arising of unwholesome states, including all of the ones we've talked about today. So that's really, really important. And then before you go to bed, so you're lying on the pillow, is a reviewing. And this is the second of the right efforts, which is the abandoning of arisen, evil, unwholesome states. So you're reviewing the day, anything that's arisen during the day, or is even arising still while you're lying in bed, falling asleep. There's that relaxing of the heart, relaxing of the mind, and just allowing the letting go, the abandoning of those states. So you're not allowing them to continue, you're not tolerating them, you're not letting them perpetuate. So you're reviewing whatever unwholesome states arose during the day, and it's like, okay, that's what happened. Just letting go, complete letting go. So, and then in the morning, again, you reset. As always, very, very helpful to journal as well. So particularly when you're doing reviewing, just to jot down things that happened, and also the core, like any particular causes that you noticed, originating factors, will be very helpful. I promise you, it'll bear incredible fruit as you go forward. Gihanta, could you kindly close?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for today. The Dhamma insights you shared, the meditation, the reflections, and for patiently listening to us and helping us discuss whatever we wanted to discuss. Thank you, Dale, for your courage in sharing, and I hope more people will take that example and share matters that are of interest, that matter. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Matisha, also for your reflections and sharings today. Thank you to everybody who's joined this session today, and the more that you joined and become part of this journey consistently, I think we all benefit. So thank you so much. We meet again in June, so please diarize. It'll be back to the Friday, the first Friday of June, which is the 6th of June. Finally, again, a lot of blessings again to Paul, our instructor, for your insight, your knowledge, your patience, and your energy, and to keep this gathering going forward. So let us also make sure that we take actions. Let me repeat this again about in the morning, making a note of not allowing unarisen, unwholesome states to occur, and then at night to review the day and let go of any arisen unwholesome states. So those are the two exercises that Paul has recommended to us. So let us follow that, and then we will continue the Bojjhanga session on Virya in June. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you,
Thank
Gyanta. Thank you all so much. So much. All right. May you be happy. May you be
Thank you,
safe.
Paul.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Okay,